Welcome to IGH Going Rogue. Today is Wednesday, February the 19th. Yesterday was my birthday, so we took the day off. We didn't party, but we chilled all day. Did not take one single phone call, which was great. So spoke to nobody except my family. That's always a rare thing. But we're back, and today actually happens to be my wife's birthday, so happy birthday. You're the best wife, sexiest woman I've ever met, and I hope you love my podcast too. Anyways, today we have a awesome guest, very unique, very special, boy genius. He was recruited to the NSA while still in high school. Good friend of mine, and well, you'll hear about it firsthand. But if you like tanks, you like armored vehicles, you like spook war games, whatever, he's the guy. Ted Yadlowsky. Welcome to the show, Ted.
Hey, how you doing, Ivan?
Doing great, man. You have your hands in just about everything. Boy genius, recruited to the NSA in high school. Why don't you tell us just that little part? You can go as far or as deep as you want in your career, or we can just dive right straight into the tanks and all the movies and cool shit that you do.
I usually get asked because people see the tanks, they see the armor, they see all the the systems I've got. Even the World War II boat, and they ask did you serve? And I said no, I didn't serve. But I've been around a lot of people who have served and helped support them. So I'm proud of that. And, early age, when I was in high school, I started working for the NSA, was a Sun administrator. So back in the day, Sun Microsystems made some pretty fancy high-end Unix type systems. And I was a Sun admin that was helping to manage and deploy and support those systems for the agency. Left there, went to work for Westinghouse Defense, and then they became Northrop Grumman. I've worked for a lot of various defense companies over the years. Worked for the Navy, the U.S. Army, mostly all IT related, and then
IT related, but with clearance, right?
With a clearance, yep. Basically, even the office of the White House we worked for some of their database systems because I got into that. But and essentially, from there, created I started working in the commercial side as well. I've worked for a lot of Fortune 500 companies, managing and basically supporting their IT infrastructure as well, and been blessed. Met a lot of interesting people over the years, and got the privilege to work with quite a few of them. Most people say I've never heard these names, but I mean, if you read their bios, their past, it's an amazing story that they have in themselves. And then the armor, the combat stuff that I've got, it's all modern. It's nothing's an antique or anything, but it's kind of unusual to have fully modern vehicles like these. And then I did recently acquire a World War II Korean War 85-foot Army patrol boat.
Yeah, so, I've been on that one. It's fascinating, man. It's beautiful. What an amazing vehicle. But before we get into that, because there's a whole story behind that, and the P520.org, I suggest everybody go visit that because we're going to talk a lot about that. But I'm going to save that for the second half of the show, Ted, if you don't mind. I want to focus on all the fun shit. And if shit hits the fan, I'm going to fucking Ted's house. We can take over a fucking small country with the shit you have over there between all the ammo, vehicles, and weapons and ammo that I have. I think we can make it out alive. But David, why don't you tee up one of his vehicles? Start out with the first one. I love those. Or start. You know what? Start the one with the models in it. Because that's a cool story. That's how me and Ted met during COVID.
Yep.
There you go.
So literally, right before they did the Maryland lockdown, we did this photo shoot, and I have the GPV armored 8x8 amphibious combat vehicle, the Colonel, and then next to it is the TAN vehicle, which is the ADVS infantry fighting vehicle. And that's another armored 8x8. That thing's like a Volt on wheels.
There you go, yeah. And they're amphibious, right? So they go in the water.
Yeah. That's the Colonel and the Joint Light Tactical Vehicle, made by ADVS. And again, another really amazing vehicle. So, and that was from the show Lioness that we used the vehicles in. So if anybody's watched Paramount Lioness, there's that scene where she's at the basic training and vehicles are driving around. Well, the Colonel and the Joint Light Tactical Vehicle were there. So.
Yeah, look at those things, man. I mean, go through some of the vehicles, David.
Yeah.
Tell us about that. That one's cool, man. I'll take that one, or one of the 8x8s. I think we can be pretty unstoppable on those.
It's a very unique vehicle because it went through testing. It actually went through the competition down in Mexico. They didn't go after the United States. They went for Mexico, and and all these vehicles are U.S. made. Let me be clear.
Awesome.
They're not foreign vehicles. So a friend of mine built, and engineered these vehicles and has basically sold most of them overseas to our allies. And so they call it the RAV, which is that 4x4 armored. It's basically a Joint Light Tactical Vehicle, but it competed up against the Oshkosh and the other competitors down in Mexico. And one of the big requirements was 50 cal resistance. Yeah. And it was the only one to survive that.
Wow.
So, meaning pepper it and drive away.
Yeah, I saw that. I remember being inside of it, and it's got some sleeves to put different layers of armor in it, right?
That is actually the infantry fighting vehicle, the Chameleon, which was another prior vehicle for the model shoot. That vehicle is designed where you can actually, depending on the threat level, what you're going to engage in the theater, put different layers of different protection between the armor. Gotcha. So it's like a window slide. You just slide it in, and then you can say, okay, this is going to be Kevlar, or if it's going to be some type of ballistic type mixed concrete and metal. It's whatever. It could be high grade aluminum with ceramic inside. So they have all different types of makes of armor that they use, and that vehicle you just basically slide it in to provide that extra level of protection for your troops inside.
So, David, find the picture of his two 8x8s, the Colonel and the other one. The Colonel and the Chameleon, right?
Yep, Colonel and the Chameleon.
See if you have both of them, the tan one and the black one. I think you got a couple of them.
Yep. That's the Colonel.
Yeah, that one's fucking badass, dude.
Yeah, that's always my friend's favorite. It was.
That's my favorite, dude. I want that fucking. I want Marshall. That one. No, that's not it. That was a 6x6.
Yep. That's inside the GPV.
Hey, so stop right there. Go back. So the cool thing about that, tell us, is you can slide the wheel from one side to the other, right?
Correct. In both vehicles, actually, the armored 8x8s, you can actually slide the steering wheel, pedals, and everything over to the passenger side, and vice versa. Just slide it back and forth. And you can also elevate, right? So you can raise it and go and stick your head out the roof. Right. It's so that, if the driver was to be incapacitated, you could actually literally hit a button and it would slide over, and then you have it locked in position, and then you take over. That's fucking cool as shit, dude. That's fine. Keep sliding through. It could be also that the driver needs to do something. He's involved with whatever. Look at that. So it's amphibious. Other gentlemen. The other thing is when you're going to different countries, and they drive on the other side of the road, you could slide it over so you don't have your American driving it and thinking he's driving on the right side of the road and he's on the wrong side of the road. So. And there we see it in the water, so it floats. Correct. That is the amphibious capabilities of that vessel. So it basically floats. The U.S. military tested it, and in fact, they didn't go with any of them. It was supposed to happen. The MRAP program was funded, and some kind of shenanigans went on, and they never received their funding. So that company went under, basically. So now we got to talk to Doge, man. We got to talk to Doge. Now that there it is coming out of the water, And we saw the Chinese
try and create a vehicle like this, a copycat, and it fucking sunk, right? It was a piece of shit.
Yeah, it sunk a lot. Even our current. I mean, I'm not trying to. BAE has their vehicle that they've produced for the U.S. Marine Corps.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure, but I think they're right now not allowed to swim in them because they've had some flip over.
David.
So if you look at the Colonel, it's kind of a interesting design because they do an engine that's sort of like a power pack, and then he put a huge turbine fan that's hydraulically driven that essentially creates this big air bubble inside the engine compartment. And there's a tornado that is formed inside that engine compartment that cools the system, but it also overpressurizes it. So if it actually was to roll over, that bubble keeps the water out for quite a significant amount of time until the vessel will actually self-right itself back.
Is that right?
So,
look at that.
That's the FNSS vehicle. That's a company in Turkey that purchased the licensing rights from GPV, and they have their new modern vehicles based on that GPV technology. So
they have the same vehicle you have.
It's a pretty bad looking vehicle. It's their modern special forces vehicle over there in Turkey they sell.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
That
is the Colonel from Red Dawn. It was in the movie for 2012 and down in Detroit, and it played the enemy, which I believe was the North Koreans, not the Chinese.
Yeah.
But yeah, so.
Well, so so the Colonel's been in Red Dawn, and it was also in Predator, right?
Correct. That is, I believe, the Marshal, and that was when it was with the Michigan State Police.
Gotcha. Look at that one.
That's the Predator, and
you see the Predator. Look at the Predator on the fucking. This Predator on the roof. Look at that.
Yeah.
Two of them.
Yep.
So what Predator was that? Was that 1, 2, 3?
I believe that was Predator 2018. And what's interesting is they had the original script, and those are the friendly predators that were working with the humans to essentially fight the evil other faction of predators who were coming to Earth to annihilate the human race.
Oh, wow. Look at that, dude.
And that plot and that whole thing went into a trash can because the executives, I believe, from what I've read, did not like the fan reaction that there were friendly predators with humans. They said that would never happen. So they rewrote the script, and the vehicle was pretty much cut out, but the vehicle made it into the movie posters.
That's cool.
So, yeah. So
well, and you got paid, right? And you got paid, so that's what matters.
And they filmed a lot with that vehicle. So
that's cool, man.
I wish it had made it in the final cut, and they will never release the director's cut because of just the two differences of how they made the story.
Look at that, and they made a toy, right?
Yeah, they even made a toy over it because it was set to basically, change the way the Predator franchise was going to go. So
that is cool. Yeah. That is really cool. So if shit hits the fan, man, where do we go? We gotta get some vehicles staged down here in Florida, dude.
If you're in Florida,
stay in Florida.
I would probably do a boat, but who knows what's going to happen? But I think we should be very optimistic. We got President Trump.
Yep.
I think we've got basically some accountability starting to happen. I think, as you know, I talked about the need to have Elon day one after Trump lost the election.
Yep.
That he is a priority. They have to, get him on our side because the Republican Party doesn't really have any top billionaires.
Yeah.
And we're hurting.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make any sense. It's not because of our messaging. It's because we know we have an oppressive government that's just got to be put back in check.
Yeah. So, hey, Mr. Producer, did you find that video?
Most people are happy with that. And hopefully, we can put some safety measures in place so our government doesn't go back to this.
Yeah. Hey, quick question. Where can we find that video of you running over that bus or van or that you're driving through it?
Yeah, that's fine. If you Google GPV Ted Yadlowsky, it should come up.
On YouTube, right?
Yep, YouTube, anything. I can send you a link
Or if
here.
you have a link, send it to David. Yep. But that thing is cool as shit. I mean, you're driving with your head out the roof, and you drive right through I think it's a van or a school bus or something, right?
Yeah, we've driven over a lot of
There it
vans.
is. There it is. Look at that. Play it.
Yeah, there you go.
Go
Keep
full
going.
screen. Go full screen. Play that one more time. Yeah, I need to get one of those. I need to get one of those, man. Holy shit.
Yeah, but what you also see in that is something that's very unique with that vehicle that our current military vehicles don't have, which is the all-wheel steering. Also, that airbag suspension system. So, an Abrams tank has 19 inches of travel in their suspension. That Colonel has 21 inches of travel. So it's quite a bit. So it can go over quite a bit of obstacles, and it's also geared pretty powerfully to be able to go. You put it up against a wall, and it will push through the wall.
That's amazing, dude.
Yeah, I mean it's a piece of fascinating technology, way ahead of its time. That's why FNSS in Turkey, Doosan in South Korea, and Malaysia has DefTech. They all have a similar vehicle with that technology. So
That is cool, man.
I
I
don't
need to
believe
get one.
United
So do
States
they make
has
them
one.
anymore, or you guys only work by custom orders?
They do. It's basically looking for somebody who in the United States it's very difficult to compete against General Dynamics or any of the big companies. It's pretty much unfair practices.
Yeah.
So they don't even try. They're just looking at overseas market. You
Yeah.
know, the days of like the World War II Jeep. Bantam was the company that made it and beat everybody out. GPV was similar in that sense. They had a vehicle that was just far superior, and it had its issues, but they were all technically obviously worked out. FNSS figured out what they needed to do. Doosan and DefTech, and they got a great vehicle. We just don't have it within the military industrial complex, I believe, that you can get this stuff in there. They
Too
want
many
to do
lobbyists, right? It's too
training and
corrupt.
just providing older vehicles, maintaining that logistics trail of all those parts, and upgrading it constantly. The Stryker is a very old vehicle. It's not really modern. So,
Well, and it's very corrupt, right? I mean, they spent millions and millions of dollars in lobbying and
well, look
whatnot.
at the MRAP program, and what did we do with those? We left them behind. We didn't want them, and nobody wanted them because they were pretty much junk.
Oh, the ones in Afghanistan.
Police departments. It was like, how do we get rid of these things? And even foreign countries.
You're talking about the ones in Afghanistan, right?
Well, there's Afghanistan, Iraq. There's a bunch of them we built. If you recall, when we first went in the second time for the Gulf War, and we took out Saddam, we had people upgrading the Humvees,
Yeah.
and they were overweighing the chassis on them. And then we said, okay, we got to do the MRAP program, which was a heavier, 4x4 vehicle truck that they armored up to try to survive through IEDs. And they brought some of them back, but most of those vehicles we left behind. We just said, let's get rid of these things. They just don't work well. They break down. There was tons of issues.
And what about the armor on them? Were they effective or they suck too? Because we know there was a lot of injured.
I think, in my opinion, that the government's behind. They're looking at mil-spec armor. When you look at the Colonel, I get away with the reason I get to own that is because it's not mil-spec armor. It's actually better. So it's a high-grade steel. When you look at the Chameleon, the other infantry fighting vehicle, again, it's not mil-spec armor. It's better. So, and that's where, it's actually classified as a truck. As long as I don't mount a weapon on it, it's a truck.
So that's why you can drive it on the street. And, there's a cool story about that.
And VIN numbers. They also have VIN numbers. They built them with VIN numbers.
Yeah, and there's a cool story that I'd love for you to share to everybody. When they locked it down, the People's Republic of Maryland, the most communist fucking state in the country, with the most fucking liberal pieces of shit on the face of the earth, maybe second only to California. You had to mobilize those tanks or those two vehicles, and you took them on the street, and everybody, all social media lit up in the state of Maryland going, martial war is in effect. Trump has called martial war. There are fucking tanks on the street, and it was Ted, and I was laughing my ass off. And so go ahead, you tell us the story.
So we had the vehicles, and there was a high meeting. Basically, one of my clients was involved with a meeting with a whole bunch of officials. There were people from the Pentagon, there were people from Homeland Security, and other agencies. And there was discussion about my vehicles and the aid of those vehicles, because one of the things I'd like to talk about is that those vehicles have been used, like in Katrina, for emergencies. And I'm always up for allowing them to be used in that fashion to help people. Because when you have a hurricane and everything's all over the road, you're not getting an F-350 or 450 or any other type of around to get into those areas that people need help.
Yeah.
The Colonel and the other, other vehicles we have can pretty much go anywhere they want and go over that kind of terrain because of the travel and that suspension. Yeah. So they wanted to see them. And so I said, look, you're kind of giving me this last minute. I can't really just contract a semi-truck and load them up in time. And I said, they're drivable. Are you going to give me a pass to drive these on the street? Because I don't want to be responsible for the panic and emergency that's going to come when driving these vehicles down the road.
Yeah.
And I did. I got it. I mean, the governor said, yep, you can do this. Nobody will harass you, and, bring them down. So we literally drove from Baltimore City, where I had them kept, and we moved them and drove them down to where this meeting was, near Gibson Island. And we created a lot of panic. I mean, people were pulling into the parking lot. Women were crying, thinking martial law had gone into effect. Somebody was badly infected with COVID. And I had to explain that, no, none of that was the case. We were asked to bring the vehicles.
Yeah, I remember seeing some posts. I remember seeing some posts saying martial law, they're going to start, rounding people up and putting us in camps.
And I did what I could to, say, look, that's not the case. The government doesn't own these. These are privately owned. And, we were asked to come to basically showcase what the vehicles could do and provide in case of an emergency situation.
Yeah.
Well, because the vehicles can actually be used as an ambulance. They've been used that way.
Oh, is that right?
Because they can get into areas that travel into places where you can't get to.
Well, in the back of the vehicles, you can fit how many troops?
The Colonel, I believe, at maximum is 18.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty big. So it's bigger than an ambulance, right?
I mean, you're tight, but I mean, you can squeeze them all in there. Yeah. The infantry fighting vehicle, I think it's something like 14 or 16. So, but yeah, it's they're amazing vehicles.
And you had to pull over to get gas, right? And
we did actually. We made a mistake where I usually don't keep a lot of fuel in them, and we always have to travel to a diesel station because I usually will pump out some of the diesel fuel out of them. This is because I worry about somebody getting in there, figuring out how to operate it, and going on a rampage. Well, they won't get very far.
Yeah.
So, we made it to the gas station outside of Cherry Hill, which is less than a mile. And the Chameleon basically made it into the parking lot, and we had to pull it with the Colonel to get it to the gas pump.
Oh, it ran out of gas. Wow.
It ran out of diesel. Just took a little too much out. And then we filled it up, and we had a lot of people stop by and ask questions, get pictures. And everybody's asking, is this martial law? And I'm like, no, these are movie vehicles. They're this. And even I think it was Maryland National Guard stopped by because they were down in Baltimore City at the same time, because this was when the Baltimore riots had happened and there was a worry of another flare up. And they're like, what unit is this? And I'm like, there's no unit. I said, these are private vehicles. So
and they're pretty impressed, right? They're like, "Oh shit! Like, yeah, why don't we get these?"
Here's the registration. Here's the tag. You can see. And they were like, "That's so cool." So, but I like helping people with them. I mean, it's a great feeling when you can do something and offer up these vehicles and say, "Hey, we can help people in an emergency crisis situation."
Yeah. Hey, Mr. Producer, do you have that picture of Katrina? I think he had a couple of Katrina in there somewhere.
Yep. So. And in Katrina, it was kind of interesting. The Colonel could float, and it actually was floated out to many people's houses that were underwater.
We're off the air. There you go. Just slide through the pictures. Don't blank us out.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find it.
All right, because I don't know what you did, but you put a blank screen on. So.
All right. I'm trying to find it.
Or just go through the pictures, and we'll scroll through them, and he'll tell you which one it is. Which one is that?
That was actually Harrisburg Car Show.
Oh, that was a car show.
Yeah, car show in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Drove up to the Capitol.
There we go.
That's Katrina.
That's Katrina. So you have to make it bigger. There you go.
Wow.
So that's Katrina.
Look at the water and everything. Look at that Humvee in the back.
Humvee in the back. I think I sent you a few extras, but you can see the debris everywhere. And
that's National Guard was using it?
I'm sorry?
The National Guard? You loaned it to the National Guard?
Yeah, we were helping the National Guard.
Yeah.
To help rescue people. Also do law and order. So the vehicle, I think, took a few shots. Somebody had told me that, because it was kind of chaos in those days.
Yeah.
And we were trying to get people to look, military's coming in, National Guard, there's curfew, stop the looting, and people are here to help and assist. So,
wow.
You're pretty protected in that vehicle. So, but I was saying, you had houses that were underwater. You had all this livestock that were standing on the roofs.
Are you serious?
Cows and horses. And if they didn't go out and rescue them, they would have died. And so the vehicle was actually used as a floating barge, basically, to go out and rescue horses and cattle and other animals off the roofs, bring them to shore, so that way they didn't die, because you didn't want to have a cholera outbreak.
Right.
All these dead animals and so forth.
So what did you do? Did you put them in the back?
No, they were on top of the vehicle.
Holy shit.
If you remember the photo, the vehicle sits pretty low in the water when it's floating.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we stuck it on top.
So you put fucking cows and horses and shit on top of there?
One at a time, and they would actually float back and forth, and yeah.
Oh my God.
So I don't have any photos of that, but that's what the guys that did those missions, that's what they told me they did. So
that's amazing. So how did you get into this armored vehicle stuff? Because you're pretty into it. You have a collection. David, why don't you open up Armor for Rent so we can take a look at his webpage? He's got a whole bunch of pictures of equipment and things like that. I know you rent it out to cities, municipalities, the government, and the people wanting to do private events and movies. Look at that.
Yeah. We probably actually try to do movies and just the government. I mean, I get calls that say, hey, can you bring it to, my bachelor party or prom or something? And I go, no, we don't really do that. So, the vehicles, and I don't have all the vehicles in there.
Yeah,
but,
scroll down. There's something scrolling. There we go.
It just gives a sense. It's more of a business card thing to say, look, if you're a movie company and you want something different, modern, we have it. And then you also saw the boat there.
Let's see that video. What video is that? I think that one's running. That one's running off the ground, right?
Yeah, that's a drone flying through it and everything.
Oh, that's a cool video. I remember this. Dude, I need one of these. thing's humming too, man. It's going pretty fast.
Yeah, it'll do 65. The other millions will go 100.
Lower the volume on the player. Lower the volume on the player. So we can talk through it.
I don't know if you noticed, that's kind of significant to do that, what it just did,
Yeah.
because it's rounding the top of a peak.
Yeah.
And if you did that in a pickup truck, you're just going to bottom out.
Yeah.
And then you're not going anywhere.
Dude, that thing is badass, man.
Yeah. So it'll go up a 60-degree incline, and it's got a lot of capability.
And how fast does it go, top end?
65 is its top end.
Yeah, dude. I mean, that thing was humming on that fucking dirt road.
Now, here's the funny part. The engine that's in there is a Caterpillar C7.
Huh.
So if you're a diesel guy and you know what that is, you go, wait a minute, you're telling me a school bus motor is in this? A souped-up school bus motor. It's a military C7. I believe it's tuned to 370 horsepower.
Wow, so you could actually upgrade it to one of the new, like, Cummings or whatever now that the engines are out there.
To do
right?
that, I'm redesigning the vehicle inside and internal and rearranging transfer cases and a bunch of
Look at
other
the
things.
tires. All 8 tires turn, right?
Yeah, they all turn.
That's amazing, dude.
So my turning radius is shorter than a Corvette. I mean, or a Porsche 911. It's pretty bad.
Dude, that's fucking amazing. How do I get one? We're going to need one when we do the Going Rogue road show.
Give me $7 million and I'll get you one bill.
Holy shit, we better get sponsors for that quickly, man, because I can't afford $7 million today. But we definitely need that vehicle. I need it parked outside of my house. Hopefully we won't go to Armageddon, but if shit hits a fan, you definitely want to be in one of those, right?
I mean, it's 6 ways of Sunday. I mean, you're going to be safe if you've got to go to the Walmart and pick up some toilet paper from the rush.
Yeah. Fucking crazy. Dude, that is awesome. So how did you get involved in this?
I mean, just because of everywhere I've worked and the various defense companies I've worked for, I knew about this company. I also did some lobbying back in the day. I worked for a nonprofit, the United States Naval Fire Support Association, and I'm proud of that. That's where we were worried about naval gunfire, naval surface fire support for our Marine Corps and our troops ashore. We don't have any today. The U.S. military just doesn't seem interested in providing. I should say the U.S. Navy has no interest in providing that service to the other forces. And they've it's like the close air support game. They want to get rid of the A-10, claiming the Joint Strike Fighter can do it all. So, I would say, no, you're not going to get air support to do what naval surface fire support, naval gunfire support does. But we're looking at dwindling budgets, wasteful spending. I mean, we've lost a lot of capability, and there's a lot of probably bigger fights to fight now to try to straighten out our military. So, but
yeah, you've been involved in a lot of stuff.
Right? I got involved with armor and amphibious warfare and so forth.
But you've also been involved in munition, right? You designed, I think, a hypersonic round or something. Tell us about that.
I worked with in the United States Naval Fire Support Association. I worked with Dr. Dennis Riley, and we developed a 16-inch hypersonic scramjet round. And we worked with Pratt & Whitney on that project as well. So they came to their conclusions, and we had a round, I think I gave you the Pratt & Whitney letter, but essentially a round that could travel 400-plus miles within minutes, fired from a 16-inch gun.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So we were fighting to try to reactivate the Iowa class, modernize them again, and we just dealt with the U.S. Navy and its shenanigans at the leadership level. And sadly, the Iowas were retired. They shouldn't have been retired the way it was done, because the way we had previously written a law back in, I think it was 95, the law stated that the Secretary of the Navy needed to certify to Congress that they had a capability of naval surface fire support equal to or greater than the Iowa-class battleships. Well, instead of the Navy actually doing that, they decided, well, we'll just repeal the law. So they lobbied on their own and got Congressman Pombo of California to advocate the removal of that law, and the Iowas then were delisted and no longer maintained. And they were donated as museums now. So
That's cool. That's crazy.
it's like we're shooting ourselves in the foot and losing capability. Some will argue and say, "Oh, those days are gone for those ships," and it's like, you can debate that, but I would say and argue, no, I don't think that's the case. Yes, they're old, but they had a lot of capability in them, and they provided that capability during the 80s and the 90s during the first Gulf War. Remember, they were what provided the credible feint to Saddam, and we didn't know what their capabilities were at the time. So we faked an amphibious landing, and we put the 2 battleships there, and we pummeled Saddam's forces because he put a lot of his forces down on the beach thinking he was going to get a D-Day landing. And reality was we were actually coming around the other side, around Kuwait, going in and cutting them off. And we destroyed the Republican National Guard and so forth. Yeah. But it was the 2 battleships there on the first Gulf War were strategically needed and necessary for Schwarzkopf's plan to work. So, and he fought to keep those ships there. So, and it was a success.
And you've been involved in, not only on the spook side, but on the defense side as well. And you supported a lot of these things out there too, right? Maybe you can't talk about it. Maybe a lot of, but you supported a lot of Black Ops shit, right?
I did. I mean, I had people who did things and helped support them IT wise and try to make sure that they had capabilities. And these were like, I really don't want to go into it, to be honest, but right. They were entities working off to the side for our country. Yep. And, when you talk about the awakening and this, all this surge and so forth in Iraq during that time period.
So how do you handle comms like that? If you can't get into it, then don't. But how do you handle comms when you have a Black Ops operation going on, right? And keep it secure and keep it, I guess, under the radar? Is that even a thing?
Well, I mean, you can get, there's ways of doing it. I mean, yeah, it's kind of interesting because I worked with guys who were, spies during World War II. And you hear about how their trade secrets were this, and this. And some of those secrets, they're still classified, how they did what they did. So they had methods of getting communications out securely. And then you get into the Cold War aspect of how it was done. And I worked with people who did that. So, and they talked about it. You get into Vietnam and some of the PSYOPs operations. I got to work with a lot of individuals that were involved in the early days of Vietnam. And, and those people were instrumental in working with me during the time I was with the United States Naval Fire Support Association, the nonprofit fighting for naval gunfire for troops ashore. So there's ways to do it. I mean, in a modern world, you're looking at, okay, what resources do we have? I always laugh at sometimes there was that one war game that was done, and we like to do war games. And I'm trying to remember the Marine Corps general's name, but he sank the Navy's carrier twice in that war game, and he basically was Iran, and they kept saying, "Well, no, you can't do this. You can't refloat them." And they said, "Well, it's not realistic. You're somehow cheating because you're communicating in some method that we can't figure out, but you're moving and mobilizing troop assets to attack us and take advantage of us. And it just doesn't make any sense. You have to be cheating." And they called the game, but he wasn't cheating. He was using carrier pigeons, and he was using all the other electronic equipment to send false messages and fake information to us, thinking they were doing this. It was that simple.
So just playmanship. That's it.
Yeah. So, there's ways to get communications out if you and I wasn't using carrier pigeons, but but there's ways to do it and do it secretly and in a way that they go, wow. And some of that gets back to just taking advantage of certain technology that you had at the time that was available to do what you were doing.
Yeah. Well, let's go into the P520 because that's a special project. I know it's very close and dear to you, and you've had quite some battles over that vessel, right?
Yeah, I mean it's a story. It's a long story in itself, so I won't go too long into it. But
Maybe start
essentially,
with the history of what that vessel is, right?
well, it is the last of the 85-foot World War II and
Give
Korean
me one second.
War.
What's that, Mr. Producer?
40 minutes.
Okay, so we got to run a break, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so run a break.
right.
Hold on, we'll be right back, Dad. We're going to our friend Mr. Pillowman.
Sounds good.
I'm excited to announce that we're having our first ever mega sale on overstock clearance and brand new products. For example, save over 50% on this season's flannel sheets. Queen size only $59.98. Kings only $69.98. They sell out fast every year, so order now. Save 20% on our brand new My Crosses. They're designed in the likeness of the one I've worn every day for over 20 years. They come in men's and women's, and they're made right here in the USA. Get our 2025 six-piece My Towel sets for only $29.98. Our initial quantities are extremely low, so get them now before they go. And our best-selling standard My Pillows, just $14.98. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use this promo code to take advantage of our first ever mega sale. But wait, remember that $75 free shipping rule? Well, that ship is sale because right now, every order ships absolutely free.
Here we go. We're back. Don't forget our good friend and use promo code IGH. So tell us about the ship.
So the P520 is the last 85-foot World War II Korean War, complete World War II Korean War U.S. Army Air Force patrol boat. And it's pretty historically significant because you can trace its origin, or you can trace Marine Special Forces back to these vessels. The OSS used these vessels, a lot of them, in Burma, the Indian campaign during World War II. And a lot of things were happening with this where you had guys who were Army, guys who were Navy, guys who were Coast Guard, all put together as a unit, and they formed a Special Forces unit. And you had also civilians. And started using a lot of technologies back then to do sabotage missions against the Japanese. Because in that area, the Japanese were getting oil refineries and taking oil to resupply their Japanese fleet, so their engine. And a lot of emphasis obviously was put on the Pacific to take back the islands. So this kind of almost gets forgotten that there was this Indian Ocean campaign as well, because Japanese had taken over, Burma, parts of India. They were spreading out everywhere, and nothing was seeming to stop them. And these guys on 85-foot crash boats didn't seem much of a threat to the Japanese. And because the ships were sort of known as a rescue vessel, in fact, the gentleman who was in charge of it, Walter Mess, he refused to repaint the vessel any other colors because he wanted it to be stand out as a rescue vessel.
So they're called crash boats, right?
Correct. And these vessels were used primarily to go out and rescue downed pilots. So
there it is.
They were, in the early days.
That's yours, right? That's your boat.
Mine. Correct. That's
that
the
thing is beautiful.
in Cambridge, Maryland, where they actually produced and built them.
Go to the next slide.
P520 wasn't built there, but the Cambridge city built quite a few of them.
Look at that.
Yeah. That's her pulled out on the rails that, launched some of her sister ships. So.
Next. There's in the water.
That is a crash boat during the Korean War. And that's another interesting tidbit, because you don't see PT boats coming back during the Korean War, except for when we gave them over to the Korean forces. We gave some. And when the Korean War was starting, and the Army intelligence was in a panic going, we got rid of these units. We don't have these OSS Special Forces units. These were very highly successful doing all these clandestine missions behind enemy lines to sabotage them. So they had to bring it back. And so they reactivated these boats to do those missions, and that was one of them.
Oh, wow.
So
So where were they built? All
They were
over the
built
place?
all over the United States.
Okay.
So all down the East Coast. They were built in Michigan. They were built in the West Coast, just like the PT boats were. They were cheap. They were made of wood, and they were made to a certain specification that the Army had set with the design. And pretty much they were almost all cookie cutted out with the same specs.
Wow, so they were made out of wood. So if they took a direct hit, they sunk.
If they took a massive hit, they were probably going to blow up. The reason is the crash boats ran on these on basically aviation fuel, which is high octane aviation fuel. So it's very flammable. In fact, nobody smoked on these vessels.
Yeah.
Would never dare. And
So that's why you told me not to light a cigarette when I was on board, huh?
there you go. So, but they had Packard motors, these Packard 4M 2500s, and they roughly produced 1,500 horsepower. And they'd have twin engines. Well, the crash boats were a little bit faster than some of the PT boats because PT boats may have had 3 of those engines, but they had all the torpedo weight. They had a lot more armament carrying on board. And crash boats didn't. So they were slightly faster. I'm going based upon the mission logs of Walter Mess and his guys that were out there in Burma. But, when they were basically getting light on fuel and everything, those boats actually they hauled. I mean, they were flying. I think Walter Mess said we recorded 52 knots.
Wow.
And that's in the Pacific, Indian Ocean. So, it's kind of great to be able to save this piece of history because I feel like that's what I did. This vessel sadly fell into the hands of a shady nonprofit museum group posing as veterans, and for the most part, they weren't veterans. Only a few of them were, and some of them actually had dishonorable discharges.
Oh, wow.
So it was a bad group. They faked their way into getting this donated boat to them. And, I found this out because I said things just don't add up, the lies, the stories. And so I basically worked with some of the victims and we recovered that vessel. And I now own the vessel. I'm working hard to try to make it into a museum and have it preserved so that, it can tell their stories. Because a lot of people have never heard of these vessels, and it's because they were part of the OSS, and those missions have remained classified up into the 90s. Even in the missions that were done in Korea by Army intelligence and the CIA that used these vessels, those missions remained classified for a long time.
So what's the mission of the organization, Ted?
So p520.org is the website. I've just started creating the nonprofit. We've applied for the IRS paperwork for the 5013C.
Yep.
And waiting to get that back so I can say, all right, we can now fundraise officially.
Go back to the page.
Donations.
There you go. Go ahead, Ted.
So hopefully that'll be soon. I'm hoping in the next, hopefully next month we'll have that.
So where do we go in there? So you're telling the story down there. See if you can scroll down a little bit on the page. Walk us through, David. Let's see. What do you got? So you have a video there. And I guess it's telling the story, right?
Yeah. Yeah, let me tell you about that video. So that video, I've got the rights to it from the people who are really the last remaining.
Play it on mute, David. So Ted can walk us through it. Yep. And go full screen.
So that video, if you want to turn it down, but
Yep.
That video I've got the rights to it. It's from the veterans who served on those vessels. And there's only, I think, about 3 alive today. 1 World War II veteran and 2 Korean War veterans. And basically it tells their service of being on those vessels, whether they were in the Aleutian Islands where the Japanese had attacked and invaded,
Yep.
or the Pacific, or the Mediterranean, the Atlantic, and also in the Indian Ocean. So
Wow, look at that.
And this goes back into the 90s when they had one of their reunions. And they had quite a few members back then that were still alive, but today there's just so few of them. So this helps tell their story of their service, their sacrifice,
Crash boats. Yeah.
and what they were doing on those vessels. And you talk about PTSD. You know, there was nothing more, beating on you when you were a crash boat veteran telling me the stories about every time they would go out, especially in the Alaska waters, trying to rescue a downed airman and not getting there in time. Oof. And they were going as fast as they could.
Yeah.
And this kind of tells their story about that, and the heartache, the pain. A lot of guys that did it couldn't do it for very long because it hurt your psyche to just always be recovering bodies.
Yeah, that's got to be terrible.
But they did their best.
There's a cool video, man. How long is it?
That video is, I think, about 40 minutes.
Wow. That's very cool. Well, make sure you guys go to p520.org and watch it and take a walk around that site. It's pretty cool. There's a lot of resources in there. So what are you going to do with it? Where are you going to station this vehicle or this vessel, and what's the plan?
So right now the plan is to get the boat repaired. She needs to be hauled out very soon. In fact, we'll be having her hauled out at Atlantic Yacht Basin down in just south of Norfolk. And she'll have her repairs done, her hull survey done. Once that's all completed, then I can properly get her insured so that I can take people on board and we can do things with her. And what I really want to do with her is have veterans on board, guys who basically are dealing with PTSD, service disabled veterans, and have companies help sponsor those events so that we can talk about the history of the vessel, what these members of this crew dealt with back during World War II, and that what they're dealing with today, they're not alone and it's not new.
Yeah.
And help our veterans. As you know, Ivan, I do a lot. I've even loaned out my vehicles for a DOD commercial sort of that dealt with this PTSD and trying to prevent soldier suicide. And I'm proud of that because they couldn't use the military's vehicles, so they needed something that resembled what they had. I lent my vehicles for free. I said, let's do this commercials. Let's put these ads out to help let soldiers know they're not alone, that there is people out there that can help and try to prevent those from that happening and making them another statistics.
That's very cool, man. So you're going to plan on keeping it up in the Northeast or Mid-Atlantic?
Yeah, it'll probably be in the Northeast. I think we're going to do definitely a DC trip. And try to bring some members of Congress on board, educate them, and hopefully
we got to get Trump, man. We got to get Trump on there.
I'm sorry?
We got to get Trump on there. We got to get the president on there.
In fact, Dwight D. Eisenhower, Truman, and a few others used to go on a crash boat down in Key West, and you used to go fishing from it. So the crash boats have been, basically the presidential yacht at times.
And
so
we could get it all the way
to have Trump on board.
We could get it all the way into the Potomac, right?
Right there in the Potomac, yep.
So right outside like Lincoln Memorial or something like that, right?
Not Lincoln Memorial.
Okay.
The water's a little shallow there, but we would probably be somewhere near the Pentagon, Fort McNair, somewhere around that area.
Yeah, because I would imagine the depth.
We like to try to keep 6 feet. So, she's got a 4.5 foot draft, but I always try to keep a 6 foot rule.
Yeah.
I'd rather be safe than sorry.
Yeah, especially made out of wood, right? That's
absolutely, because nothing's cheap these days. Everything has gone up in price. It's not this boat has been a major project and cost me financially quite a bit. So
let's make it happen, man. I'll talk to Seb and some of the other guys and hopefully we can we can make that happen one way or another. I'm pretty sure he would probably love to jump on that boat. Knowing the president, he loves that shit. So man, that would be
talk
very
about
cool.
The history and the service, because everyone goes, what's a crash boat? And take for example, the tragedy that just recently occurred with the helicopter and the airplane in the Potomac.
Yeah.
This is the thing. This boat would have gone out and tried to help and rescue and provide, get survivors off those things and, handle wreckage and so forth. That's what it was designed for.
That'd be very cool, man.
They would do that mission today, but it could. So.
Dude, we could have the president on there, and then once he gets off, we go hit the Georgetown Harbor and go party at Sequoia. Fuck it, right? So that would be a lot of fun. Hey, changing gears.
Yes.
You're very close to the defense industry, military, all that shit. You've played around with it. You know a lot of people. You've had high clearance. You've been privy to a lot of conversations. I'm not going to make you break any of that confidentiality. But there's a lot of shady shit going on, and it's really good to see Elon popping that. David, why don't you put on his tweet real quick, and then I'm going to go into something else. So go down, expand on that, because you can see Fetterman's tweet below.
Yeah.
So Fetterman says, I want to save billions of your money and make our government more efficient. And he says, rummaging through your personal shit is not that. A party of chaos loses always, right? So go back up and look at Elon's response, which is hilarious. He goes, bruh, if I wanted to rummage through random personal shit, I could have done that at PayPal. Hello? Right? Having tens of millions of people marked in Social Security as alive, right? When they are definitely dead is a huge problem. Obviously, some of these people would have been alive before America existed as a country. Think about that for a second. I mean, dude, it's insane. I mean, anyways, I'll suck there. But David, you can take that off. But I mean, look at that. Somebody's 360 years old. Get the fuck out of here. So he's uncovering all this waste spending and all this shit. We've always known that. We've talked about that as strict fiscal conservatives, right? We've always talked about the waste in government and the bullshit and the fucking rhinos being complicit on this crap. The Democrats and the fucking Republicans, the same fucking garbage. They're just fucking all about, building wealth and building power for themselves, and they don't give a fuck. We've talked about, the cheating in elections, especially 2020. We've talked about a lot of different things. I've had several guests talk about the deep state. There's an office that a lot of people want to sidestep and nobody wants to talk about directly. I don't know if you're willing to. We don't have to, but it's the Office of Net Assessment. We saw during the Russian collusion, Peter Strzok was going in there, I think, to take his marching orders. Senator Grassley brought it up in his papers and his findings. What the fuck is going on with that office? Why is that so dangerous? And, we hope that Elon Musk, when he goes into the Pentagon, that shit's going to go down. I mean, once he goes into the Pentagon, once Doge goes into the Pentagon, I think that office is fucked.
I don't know. I mean, I hope so. I mean, I will just say, Andy Marshall was,
he was a guy, right?
Briefed him, great guy, very intelligent. The question is you got to look back at what the origins of the office, why it was created. And many have forgotten what that reason was because it was so long ago under Richard Nixon. Yep. And it was to deal with the military-industrial complex. Okay, to put it in check.
So explain that to laymen.
Meaning we're going to try to make sure that we don't get ourselves involved in conflicts that are made up, and essentially brought into other big wars when it's not necessary, when we could have done other things to avoid it. And
it got derailed.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, you think about this for a second. Andy Marshall, basically was appointed to that position back under Richard Nixon. He didn't resign until in Barack Obama's, I think, first term in office. Okay, so he served in the Pentagon in that office, and people go, well, what does that mean? What is this office? Well, go look it up in an org chart. If you go back in the time and you look up some of the org charts, it sat all by itself over to the side or to the right of the Secretary of Defense.
So it's still under the Secretary of Defense, or it's at the same level?
Same level.
So it reports to the president, not the secretary, not SecDev.
Well, that's the next thing is you get into. He advises the president if he chooses to. I mean, because I'll go back to what we had under Donald Trump, clearly, and with all the things that have been publicly outed, that clearly, I don't think Obama, who picked the next replacement, lifetime appointment for that position, was probably.
So that guy needs to be. I think he froze. Let's see if he comes back. He's frozen for a second.
And
There he is. He's back. He's back. Well, hold on. Your image is frozen. There you go. You're back.
sorry, I say most people don't realize that Obama appointed the next lifetime appointment to that office. So it's a lifetime appointment.
An Obama guy. Go figure.
Yeah. Yeah. So this guy could serve for another 10 presidents or whatever. Who knows? Maybe when he's 99. I mean, I think Andy retired at 92.
Holy shit.
Yeah. So, and he's got a library or museum dedicated to him and his service.
Is that right?
Yes. You can find it. Andy Marshall's library. So on policy. He was highly respected. I mean, this was somebody that was like a president. If you do enough research on it and you say, wait a minute, foreign leaders, people inside the military, DOD, Intel, all of them, all were like sad to hear when he passed away.
So net assessment has been involved in shady shit too, right? Ollie North was in net assessment, right?
I'll just say the public stuff is you essentially look at the public. Where did Oliver North work?
That's what I was about to say.
Iran-Contra.
Yep.
Okay.
And then if you look at Iran-Contra, then you go into deeper, right? I'll take you into the fucking weeds a little bit because I'm gonna have this next person, as a guest, which is Hector Bayeres. He's a former special agent DEA who led Project Legenda, which was the investigation of the kidnapping, torture, and murder of DEA Special Agent Kiki Camarena by the Guadalajara cartel. And, the whole findings that Hector brings up is that was actually, and I'm going to have him talk about this because he talks about it. And if you go to Prime Video, you can find it as The Last Narc. It's a short miniseries. I think it's like 4 or 5 episodes. And he talks about how the CIA gave up Kiki for arms on the whole Iran-Contra, and who was Iran-Contra? That was fucking Ollie North, and Ollie North was in that assessment. I mean, dude, it is all fucked up all over the place, right?
Right. I mean, and to get some credit, I mean, on 9/11, the planning to get all those airplanes to land immediately as quickly as possible, that originates with Oliver North and I believe net assessment. That's been covered on the History Channel publicly, so I'm not giving up any secrets.
So they do good shit, right?
Yeah. But I think if it was me and I was, advising Elon or Trump, I would say I would go there first.
How do you lock that down? I mean, they could be right now erasing hard drives and moving shit.
We're probably already reorganizing it because that's what you do is you do a reorg and then you can basically break it up and put it over here and spread it out and then.
No. I'm talking about the people at net assessment right now already know that they're coming to the Pentagon, so they could have already made preemptive moves, right?
Well, do they exist even on an org chart? I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's a question of no one's brought it up. No one's talked about it. The only time you ever heard it kind of brought up and mentioned was Senator Grassley, who figured out that the check that was for Papadopoulos that came from the government originates back to net assessment.
And that's insane, right? So net assessment cuts a check to go bribe or corrupt or compromise.
Go to Papadopoulos so that he could use it to buy intel on Hillary Clinton.
Right.
The premise.
Right. But, to compromise.
We're giving you money.
Yeah.
We didn't tell you what to spend it on, but we're giving you this money.
Yeah.
And fortunately for Papadopoulos, he took that money and gave it to his attorneys in Italy to put it in their escrow.
Yep.
So he had attorney-client privilege.
And then we see that Peter Strzok was going to the Office of Net Assessment on a regular basis. I think it was like a couple times a week or something, right?
Who knows? But I mean, he was going to the Pentagon. I'm sure he was visiting some office.
Yeah. So what is the counter espionage guy at the FBI doing? At Net Assessment, pushing this fake bullshit Russian hoax. I mean, dude, it's fucking disgusting.
Well, you got to look at Peter Strzok, and you got to look at all the things that he was involved with, and you've had it on your show already.
Yeah.
You know, where you go to overstock.com.
Yeah.
Okay, his name.
Yep.
You know, somebody. What was he doing? Why is he running all these psyop operations?
Yeah.
Okay, against Americans.
Yeah.
So, and it's looking like more like political enemies list.
Well, that's exactly what it was. I mean, you know, Peter talked about that.
That's where I hope for our country, so it can heal, that we can clean this up, put some safeguards in so this doesn't happen again. And somebody looks at the bigger picture of this, and I think Elon Musk is somebody who can do that. You know, he's built many companies, and he's a lot smarter than me and you.
Yeah.
So
Without a doubt.
I would hope that all this will get put in, because it all somehow, the dots may, you know, you're not going to have a treasure map say, oh, it all leads back to this. It's many people with probably different interests that want to have power, money, and control, and greed is why they've done all this.
Well, Peter Byrne, right, who you were talking about, the founder and CEO of Overstock.com, he talks about how he got pulled in, you know, by the Bureau, you know, to, you know, which usually happens when you're in business. You travel a lot. You know, sometimes you get tapped on the shoulder and say, hey, you know, have you seen anything or hear anything? Or we know that you have some close relationships with these people. Hey, can you whisper something in their ear? You know, or can you deliver this message? I mean, it's happened to everybody. You know, no different with him. But he got really involved, and you know, we had him on the podcast. You know, I don't know, back in, I think it was November, one of the initial podcasts 3 months ago, and he talks about how this group, you know, started pulling him in more and more and more and more, to the point where they wanted him to set up an $18 million bribe of Hillary Clinton from a specific country. And, you know, how he set it up, where it happened, how it happened, all that. And then later he found out why, because, you know, they suspected she was going to win. It had been green lighted and approved by President Obama, because he wanted to hold these chips over her head so he could control her. And then, you know, when she lost, all of a sudden they said, fuck, we need to weaponize this against Trump. And that's when they started the other investigation. I can't remember what the hell it was called, Operation whatever.
There needs to be real investigations into a whole lot of issues, like, you know, why did we take out Gaddafi?
Yeah.
You know, why were we arming ISIS in Syria?
Yeah.
Why were we doing, you know, I think I shared with you, I know you're a gun guy. You know, when you started seeing photos of ISIS with FS-2000s, okay, and I pointed that out to you, I said, look, there's only one military that has FS-2000s in massive inventory, and that was Libya.
Yeah.
It's amazing how we're now, you know, Libya has defeated Gaddafi, and the arms caches have become available, and somehow we're going in and we're collecting some of this stuff, and it's now showing up over on the battlefield in ISIS in Syria.
Yeah.
That quickly. You know, obviously there's a connection there. I don't know what it all is, but somebody should basically do a real investigation.
Do you think Doge can do that? Do you think Doge will find it out?
Why are we doing this?
Do you think Doge can find it out, or are they gonna be able to cover and hide it?
I think Doge is more the accounting side. Yeah. You're gonna need something else to figure out, why were we doing these policies? Why was the CIA or the FBI or military intelligence, whoever, doing all this stuff?
Well, look, I think Radcliffe
was in the best interest of our country, and it was so do this or that. But it seems like it's all reckless and out of control, obviously.
Yeah, but I think Radcliffe at CIA is the right guy. I think Cash, it looks like we got the vote, so he's going to get confirmed.
I have full hope in Cash and all of these guys that they will actually get basically special prosecutors to go look at all of this stuff and see, was this really about financial gain for some people and people in those parties? Or was this actually for America's best interest?
Well, I mean, look, I think what Doge is doing is uncovering the spend, the corruption, the fraud. But when you uncover that, right, so they found out there's $4.7 trillion out of the Treasury that's unaccounted for, not coded. So we don't know who the fuck it went to. When he goes into the Pentagon, he's going to find out there's a whole fuck ton of money that's going somewhere and nobody knows where it is. That could be net assessment. That could be net assessment, right?
Well, it could be. He could be going into the U.S. Army. He could be auditing the Navy. He could be auditing the Air Force. He could be auditing whoever. All those agencies, except for I believe the Marine Corps, have all failed audits. But I also want to, I was good friends with. I'm still good friends with a guy who was a former weapons tester for the Pentagon, top weapons tester. And people go, "Oh, they paid $800 for hammers." Well, what they don't understand sometimes is, or the $10,000 toilet seat.
Yeah.
What would you? And I want to make sure, like, Elon needs to be careful when they hear that, they see that, maybe understanding what is that item, because then you get pulled into a trap.
Yeah.
Because that $800 hammer, well, that is a specialized $800 hammer. Why? Because they needed a hammer that can make sure it doesn't spark, because it's used in a hydrogen environment or something. Okay, they have these types of special tools that they have to have that are very expensive because they're not. You don't make that many of them, and they're not often.
Yeah.
The $10,000 toilet seat or whatever, that was for an EP-3 spy plane because they wanted to give some crew comfort to the pilots and the crew to go to the bathroom. Because of all that sensitive equipment on board, putting a bathroom on board was not an easy task. So I forget who it was at the time that makes that plane, but they had to put the toilet in a way so that it didn't interfere with any of the sensitive electronics on board. Hence, the $10,000 toilet seat.
Holy
shit. And then when they got yelled at for that, because it was so expensive, they put it out to bid, and it was like 3 times the cost to do it.
Wow.
So they got to be careful, these rabbit holes that they go down, and that they don't realize that, okay, there's a justification for this. But I think Elon is smart enough to know that because he's in the rocket industry.
Yeah, he's no SpaceX.
Hey, we produce this stuff, and we have these things where if you look at it on paper, hey, we're producing a screwdriver that costs, $15,000. Why? Well, it's a specialized screwdriver that deals with this type of metal, whatever it could be. So as an example. So I think you still got the best guy to do the job.
Yeah.
It's just I hope that they're a little more tight-lipped and fact-finding of what this is. If it is truly, hey, we just bought, $800 hammer and at Home Depot it retails for $15.99, yeah, we got a problem.
Yeah.
This happened also with guys who were in the military providing services to supply and maintain tanks. And they were going to Radio Shack to buy the parts themselves just because they wanted to get the job done and get the thing back in order and functioning. Well, they got reprimanded for that. You can't do that. You got to buy the same part because there's a company that's backing that part to warranty that thing for that vehicle. And that's what needs to get looked at across the board to say, well, wait a minute, is it too ridiculous when we can buy the same thing for 15 cents at Radio Shack and you want to charge me $300 for that same thing? So again, across the board review, the word is COTS. They love to throw that term. The GPV is commercial off-the-shelf technology. It's Caterpillar. It's this. It's that. But it's done in a way that the defense
custom built
is going to support it.
Yeah, it's custom built, right? So here's the, I guess, when you look at everything, it's amazing. They did this, comparison or this chart, and they said, how many Americans support, Doge? Like 87%, or 90% or whatever the hell it was. It was like 87%, Republicans, 13% Democrats, right? Or no, it was country. It was 87% of the country supports it, 13% is opposed it, yet the Democratic Party is in opposition. How many people support this? 80-something% versus the other. And the Democrats are on this really small side of the argument.
Well, they don't. It's not that they're against doing the audit. I don't think. I think they are against who's doing the audit.
Well, what I'm going to get to is the following: is
that's
they're against it because
it's not their crooks doing the audit.
They're against it because, dude, they're corrupt and they've been stealing for fucking decades. You know, the list that I don't know, Mr. Producer, if you have that list that Elon tweeted the other day, but he makes a list of, you know, all the members of Congress, what their net worth is and what their base salary is. And you look at people like Nancy Pelosi and Schumer and, you know, that fucking dick, what's his name, Schiff, and, you know, everybody else, you know, how they boomed their Cory Booker's net worth. And now he's saying, well, no, I got paid for giving speeches. You're not allowed to do that. That's against Senate rules. Right, so there seems to be a lot of
office. He can do all the speeches he wants. Right, absolutely.
But you know, dude, it's you know, the uncovering all this is an uncover mass corruption. How it went out one side and came back the other side, and people have been talking about this for a long time, right? With the whole Ukraine shit, the amount of money that was going to Ukraine, with the money that was going to Ukraine and coming back to the DNC, right, and the Democrats. So I don't know, bro. I mean, I think it's going to be a shit show. I just hope people end up in prison. You know, that would be a very good example.
We've talked privately. I mean, I would welcome Trump going in and doing the State of the Union in March and do it like Saddam and have a nice cigar and just start calling out names. Pam Bondi sending in agents to arrest these people.
Yeah.
You know, I think it would be beautiful because we know that the corruption's going on. If they have all the evidence.
Can you see that, Ted? Can you expand that a little bit, David?
Unlike Saddam, they're going to give them a fair trial. They get the right to defend themselves and their actions.
Can you see that? So Nancy Pelosi, annual salary $223,000, net worth $202 million. Mitch McConnell, cocaine Mitch, that fucking son of a bitch. He should be in a fucking nursing home. Annual salary $200,000, net worth $95 million. Chuck Schumer, annual salary $210,000, net worth $75 million. Elizabeth Warren, annual salary $285,000. How is she making more than the House and the Senate leader? That's weird. Net worth $67 million. And there's a huge list.
Well, maybe she's taking staff money. You know, she's taking a salary from a staffer.
Maybe. There's got to be something, but that's strange.
Yeah, I don't need that position. We'll just pocket to me.
You know,
so, I don't know. But it's here's the thing. What we're seeing though is we've got a massive breakdown. You know, we've got inspector generals that don't seem to be doing their job.
Yeah.
There's so much rampant corruption. We've got this is what I don't think the American people really understand or grasp because I always tell friends, I'm like, you really need to spend one day, take it off work, go down to D.C. and meet with your congressman.
Yeah.
You're not going to get to meet with them, but you get to walk the halls and you get to see what the halls are filled with. It's not average citizens. It's all lobbyists.
Yeah, that's all it is.
Okay? And when you get inside there, they're going to be like, oh, you're a constituent. Okay, well, they're not here, but we can meet with one of the staff. And they're polite. And but you're going to see it's all about meetings with lobbyists.
Yeah.
And it's not the American people. It's every group there is that's beating on them to make them write legislation to favor their cause.
Right.
That's it. And
it's crazy, bro. It's crazy. I mean,
we have Congressional Budget Office. We have the GAO. We have all these agencies that basically write up thousands and thousands of reports for nothing.
They do nothing.
It's only there to be cherry-picked to favor somebody's agenda.
Yeah.
It's not to say, well, we found this is all wrong and we need to fix this and we're going to execute this. That's not what happened.
So term limits, right? We've been talking about term limits for decades. Do you think Trump will be able to get it passed? I doubt it. I don't think Congress would ever pass term limits against themselves.
I think you'll have your biggest problem in the Senate. I don't think the Senate on the Republican Rhino side will vote for it.
Well, right. The rhinos will never do that.
Happen. You're going to have those that are going to say, I ain't giving up this.
Yeah.
You know, and whether it's a senator that says 12 years is not enough. I need a lifetime. You know, again, people have forgotten, and you know, the voters, we need just better choices of who we're voting for and better candidates, you know, because there's just so many bad people that get into politics now. And we're seeing that at the local levels, you know, in our states and cities, and they're bankrupting everything.
Yeah.
And it's because they have no managerial experience. They have no idea what they're doing. And it's creating a huge mess.
Yeah.
Plus the government, just like the federal side, just like, oh, well, we'll just give you more money. Well, that'll fix it. We'll just throw money at it.
Yeah.
That's a fix.
Well, and look, 2022 is, 2026 is going to be tough. Does he retain? Does he expand? Does he lose?
Oh, I think it'll expand. I think
so too.
Right now, with what the Democrats have done, in their party, they've almost committed suicide. I think Fetterman gets it, and look, Fetterman's somebody who's suffered a stroke. He's not. He's a liberal progressive, but he gets it. He sees it. He's like, nope, these are things you don't want to fight over, and you better get on their bandwagon because that's what most of the American people agree with.
Everybody, there's some people that believe that that Satan's dead. I don't think so. I think he's going to be the candidate for the Democrats in 2028. I'm talking about Gavin Newsom.
Yeah.
It's probably going to be between him and Governor Whitmer. People are like, no, he's dead. California's a shithole. I don't think people really give a shit about it being a shithole. You look at the majority of people in the United States are not really politically savvy. They don't follow the news. You look at women specifically, not to bust on women, but the majority of women do not follow and engage in news and politics deep to understand it. And they're going to look at this guy, super articulate, very good looking, attractive guy. We saw it, in this mock that the media was trying to push, the DeSantis Newsom candidacy.
Oh, he pushed it when he was at the White House and Biden was out. And here he is with his jacket off, trying to make himself look like he's, JFK or whatever.
Exactly.
Oh, look at him.
I still think he's dangerous, dude. I don't know why everybody is discounting this guy.
The question is he's got obviously a few problems. One is his railway, that the funding and where it went. He's also got the homeless funding that has disappeared. Where did that go?
Yeah.
He has his own house that was gifted to him for whatever, it was $3 million house. Like there's no favors involved in that. I mean, someone just gives you a house and you get $3 million, and then you can take a loan against the house and borrow against the equity of it and use that for what you want. I mean, there's enough, I think, that it should spark just an investigation, not to just say, hey, we want to do targeted attack. No, there's something wrong here. I mean,
that's what I'm saying. We can't sit idle on our side and just let him,
right?
And then bring all this shit up at the election. Somebody needs to investigate this guy. I personally think he needs to be fucking, slaughtered now when he's done.
I don't agree with the Trump administration and Pam Bondi dropping charges against Eric Adams in New York.
Yeah.
Clearly, unless they have something that says, oh, he's exonerated, and here's why. I haven't seen that document yet, but I mean, he was involved in some type of campaign fraud with his staff, and there was a singer, I forget her name, who did the music video that figured it all out. It actually, she didn't figure it out, but she started it. That created the problem where the Catholic Church was looking at this church saying, why is I think it was $20 million being funneled over here? You know about this?
No, I haven't followed that story at all.
So, I think her name is Christina Carpenter, and she was at the award show when she won an award, and she says, "Well, I'm also credited with taking down the mayor of New York, for some type of campaign fraud." What it was is she did a music video at a church in New York that she got authorization from this one preacher, who essentially said, yeah, you can do it here, and you can give me this kickback of whatever it was, $100,000 or something, and you can film your thing here. Well, she did her music video there, and it was very sexual. It made over 10 million hits or whatever on YouTube, and the Catholic Church started getting inquiries into, you realize you let this church be used this way? Well, those upper management in the church were upset, came down on that preacher saying, what did you do? Why did you allow this? And they started looking into his finances of how he's running his church, and they discovered this, I think it was 20 million that was going somewhere to another firm, and they're like, what is this? We don't want to get wrapped up in this. So they reported it to the FBI or the feds, and they investigated it, and it turned out to be some type of campaign financing scheme.
Holy shit, dude.
And there's videos out there, you can find it, but I mean, and I'm getting the short version, but I'm like, that all needs to be really looked at and carefully to say, hey, what's going on here?
Yeah.
And if he can be exonerated, great. I'm happy to hear that.
What do you think is going to happen? There's a lot of rumors going around about judges and saying that all these preemptive pardons by Biden, shouldn't be allowed or unconstitutional, go beyond the realm of the actual pardon and blah, 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 blah. You think that's going to have any legs, or is it just a bunch of noise and bullshit?
Well, the only thing I'll say to that is the Hur report, which is nobody's talking about that and having the audio released.
Yeah.
Okay. I wish somebody would say, hey, Pam Bondi, now that you're there, can you release the Hur recordings?
Well, I know Tom is trying to get it, right? Tom is trying to get that Freedom of Information Act, right? The FOIA, yeah.
Because to me, then the American people can see just how bad Joe Biden was.
Yeah.
With mental decline.
Yeah.
And then the cover-up of the mainstream media and the Democrat Party about his mental acuity.
And by the way, the media should lose their fucking licenses from the FCC.
Definitely, because they covered this up.
Yeah.
Okay? We've heard the other side, mainstream media, MSNBC mostly, scream, and even CNN, scream that, Trump, his mental acuity is not there. Can he be trusted, with the nuclear button? No, literally, we had Weekend and Bernie's. I mean, the man literally was 2 years on vacation during his presidency.
Yeah.
This is insane.
And he was Weekend at Bernie's, dude. I mean, we called that back in 2020. He was hiding in his basement, I think, like 80-something% of the time.
Right. During the campaign, it was like, are you kidding me? There was so much, it was so disingenuous to the American people that,
dude, he couldn't get 10 reporters to a press conference.
No, this is just as bad as the whole COVID thing and Anthony Fauci, because as you know, we were together on that with a business that we did together.
Yep.
And I told you early on when we first met, I believe, well, actually right after we met, I said, I knew back in December from friends
that something was going on. Yeah.
Discovered that this COVID thing was manufactured.
Well, I told you my CIA buddy of mine told me in either March or April that this came out of a fucking lab leak.
Yeah, I had friends that said they knew it came out of Wuhan.
Yeah.
But let me give you the statistic. They were saying this was engineered because it had HIV in it.
Fuck.
Okay. I had that all the way back prior to the lockdowns and everything else in December. So if we knew that then, officially, how the hell did we go through this whole lie? I mean, who's running everything?
It was fucking political, dude. It was to fucking lock everybody down and push in mail-in ballots.
People lost their jobs. People lost their businesses. Restaurants closed. I know people who had opened up restaurants just then to have it close and go bankrupt.
Yeah.
It destroyed them.
Yeah.
And where are those tears from the Democrat Party or anybody?
Yeah, dude. I mean, I know somebody personally that had bought a restaurant that fall of 2019, and COVID hit, and dude, he was bankrupt, lost his fucking house, lost his business, lost the investment, lost fucking everything, dude. And it's taken him years to come back.
I mentioned I had a friend who died in October, and he lives down in Atlanta. And I kind of knew the COVID thing was starting to pop up because I read international news, and I'm watching this, and I'm like, okay. And my friend passed away, and they said he died of pneumonia. And I'm like, this guy was Mr. Healthy. I mean, and goes to the gym, physically fit, competed, and he's former DOD, and I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. I mean, you're telling me he went back and forth to the hospital multiple times, and he dies of pneumonia, and he was violently sick? No, I think he died of COVID because he did travel, and he went over to Asia. So I'm just like, okay, and I told his wife, I said, I'm not buying this. I think this is COVID. Could you prove it? No, because then every death later, when they said, these are all COVID deaths.
Right. I think I got COVID very early. I think I got COVID in March. I think before the lockdowns. So you remember, I launched a TV show early in January 2019. In 4 weeks, it became the number one show on Sundays. In 7, it was the number one show on the network. Financed that show for 5 months and then said, you know what, fuck this. I'm going to go do this myself. Created this over-the-top stuff and then started playing around DC, different studios, production groups, etc. And we launched Battleground, Framers Forum, and then a Spanish show. And we were doing this. So we were shooting 3 shows once a week and airing them on Sundays. And, you know, I got sick. A whole bunch of people got sick. And we were sick for like fucking 3 weeks, dude. And we're like, motherfucker, you know, I think we got COVID. We would like kid around. I think we got COVID. We had like these big jars of fucking, you know, whatever it's called, that disinfectant crap, you know, in the studios everywhere. And, you know, but we didn't die. I mean, you know, we were fucking healthy people, you know. People that died had like all these kind of health issues and complications and all that.
But you get back to the lie of, you know, ivermectin, hydrochloroquine, all of these things. That were in the reports from the military, and I always brought up to you, I'm like, why is it we're not hearing from Fort Detrick?
Yeah.
You know, our military facility that deals with, you know, kind of viruses like this, and I'm like, it's like they're silent.
Why? Why do you think?
And I just, to me, I had a lot of questions. I just hope that also gets investigated, and not. You need almost like a 9/11 commission, but not have it be corrupt. That investigates all this nonsense to say, where is all the failures and breakdowns occurring in addition to what Doge is doing?
Yeah.
Because there's something massively wrong when they can lie about it, and be so wrong.
Right. Dude, I think there was it was totally corrupt.
These were the answers.
It was fucking corrupt as shit, dude. That's the reality of what happened. It was corrupt as shit.
Well,
it was staged.
It put us into a massive deficit.
Yeah.
I mean, was this done intentionally to basically hurt America financially?
Fuck yeah, dude. Fuck yeah. I think it was, and you heard Trump talk about it, right? He said, "Hey, you know what? These motherfuckers did this shit. We're gonna fucking send them a bill. We're gonna have China pay for this." And then all of a sudden it got weaponized with the media and everybody to, you know, stay home, lock down. We can't fucking have elections.
You attack China, you know, the mainstream media starts attacking back. And it's like, okay, which side are you guys on? Are you sure you're a United States news network? I mean, it's not to say that you have to be 100% agreeable to everything the president says, but it's sort of like we don't have a real checks and balance. It's everything.
Dude, they use that shit, dude, to lock everything down.
It's wrong. It was wrong.
You know, to lock everything down and to force that mail-in ballot crap. Because that's how they cheated. That's how they won. Nobody in the right fucking mind. Hey, Ted, nobody in the right fucking mind, unless you're a fucking lunatic, moonbat, and highly under the influence of some kind of fucking benzo, barbiturate, or fucking illicit drug, can believe that fucking Walking Dead zombie got 81 million votes. That's impossible. That's an impossibility. Nobody can believe that. The amount of fucking excitement, draw, enthusiasm, everything that they were talking about this election, and you look at the numbers.
That's where I hope with the Doge team that they're going to dig back far enough, because we know that obviously, was it USA aid money to create it, to go to NGOs to get out the vote campaigns to register that 81 million to get them to vote. And we know, and are they even legit? It, you know, again, another group that has to go out and look at this carefully and investigate it and see if this is the case. We had a 9/11 commission. I always had a friend who was on that, and there was always what they recommended.
Yeah.
And one of the big recommendations was, well, we need to stop handing out driver's license to illegals.
Yeah. Well, no.
Okay, common sense, because the hijackers were able to do what they were doing in the United States because they had driver's license, could show their driver's license to get into flight school to learn how to, take off and, fly a little bit. And it's like, we have yet to see anybody do anything to stop that. We're going to make a million excuses and we're not going to do those recommendations.
Yeah, Elon Musk, and, when you go back to that last post that we pulled up on how many people were over 300 years old or whatever,
Yeah.
You know, in his thread, he goes, if you think this is bad, you should see what we've discovered on the Pennsylvania voter rolls. And he guesses out to how many 100-year-olds are actively registered to vote in PA, or how many people are registered to vote in the 1800s.
Yeah.
That's fucked up as shit, dude. So I think he's going to uncover a lot of crap. Look, you know,
It's uncovering it, but we don't want it to be like another GAO or CBO report where nothing is done.
Yeah. Do you think anything is going to come out of the Kennedy files, out of Epstein's list?
Well, the Epstein list, I think, will have more. You know, the things that happened, I think, with JFK, we're going to find out our government or CIA or some government agency was involved, probably.
Yeah.
And that, you know, but again, does that change anything? Not really. I think what we got to look at the Epstein list is, well, why was our government involved? Why were so many corporations involved with this guy Epstein and facilitating what he was doing?
Yeah.
That's the big question. It's like, who was helping this man facilitate all this? He didn't do it all by himself. You know, there are other actors all involved. That net needs to be thrown out, captured, and looked at. And look at that client list of people who are involved in this. You know,
Who was
people should be charged. But
hold on one second. I'm trying to remember. God, that Jewish lawyer who was a Democrat now. You know, he supported Trump. I can't remember his name.
the guy still voted for Biden. I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
Do you remember who I'm talking about, right?
Yep.
What's his name? David, do you remember his name? I'm like fucking retarded right now. Hold on. Oh my God. I can't believe I can't remember his name. But anyways, he was talking about the Kennedy daughter, how she was like going.
It's Alan Dershowitz. Sorry.
Dershowitz. Oh my God. Yes. So he was talking about, because they were asking him, why is he defending RFK Jr. and when obviously his first cousin, the senator of New York, Kennedy, is bashing him and calling him a woman abuser and this and that and the other. And he goes into this story and just fucking destroys her. And he goes, first of all, that's bullshit. And he goes, and he goes, and I had my run-in with her. And he starts talking about some stories that they're at this fucking event. And all of a sudden she goes and sees him and she goes, if I would have known you would have been here, I wouldn't have fucking showed up. And he goes, why? What the hell's wrong? What did I do to you? And she goes, you defended that fucking criminal rapist Trump. And he said to her, well, this is what he claims. He said to her, he goes, well, I also defended your Uncle Ted, and you remember him. He had a car accident. He was drunk and he fucking killed a woman. I think everybody deserves a good and legal, solid defense, regardless of what it is or what they're accused of. And, anyway, so he said he went back and forth and her phone rang and she got up to take a phone call, disappeared for about 20 minutes. And then she came back and he said, here, this is for you, while she was still on the phone. So he grabs the phone. He goes, yes, hello, who's this? Jeffrey Epstein. And he goes, this piece of shit is accusing, her cousin, Trump, and she's on a fucking 20-minute phone call with Jeffrey Epstein. It's like, the hypocrisy is fucking ridiculous. And and then he went on to said, she probably forgets how much of a gem her fucking dad was, and all the scandals, not just, affairs, but, also, shenanigans that he had inside the fucking White House, worse, 10 times worse than Bill Clinton, so... the reason I'm going down this rabbit hole, is because of, I brought up the Epstein list. There seems to be a lot of fucking worried people out there, huh? Do you think it's going to be as explosive as everybody expects?
It's like what's that movie where Dwayne the Rock Johnson comes back to his town or whatever, and there's this corrupt sheriff and a corrupt casino.
Yeah.
he gets fed up with it, so he runs for sheriff and he becomes the sheriff.
Yeah.
And he starts to say, all right, now they're worried, and now they think they can intimidate The Rock, and he can't, and he takes them down.
Yeah.
I think they're worried that they have lost part of their control.
Yeah.
That they don't have enough inside to sidetrack or confuse or kind of lead them down different wrong rabbit holes, so they waste time.
Like they did with Trump in his first term, right? He was lost.
Right.
He didn't have a clue.
Trump fell for all of the shenanigans that they put in front of him. Honestly, he was that coyote chasing the roadrunner, and it was one thing after another, and they just kept throwing things. And
the other thing is that he couldn't get anywhere, and he surrounded himself by all the fucking rhinos, right?
Right.
So that was kind of a fucking problem.
Because we know that for a fact. We know McCain was doing what he was doing.
Yeah.
McCain was involved in going after the Tea Party conservatives.
Yeah, so
they have a disdain. There's a clear disdain for people who are conservative from elected officials who pretend to be conservatives.
Yeah.
But again, we just got to get better people elected, and our team needs to be better organized. I think Trump has done a lot of that, and to his credit. And I think hopefully this time there'll be some accountability.
I hope so, man.
If we accountability after all of this and some people going away in handcuffs, then we're not fixing anything.
I think everybody loses credibility at that point, right? If you don't see people in handcuffs, right?
It's not that you see them in handcuffs. It's that actually they get a trial and they go through the system the way it's supposed to work.
Yeah.
And that we're going to hold people accountable for doing these types of crimes. I mean, you look at Menendez, and he had the gold bar. And it's like, how long have you known that this guy was a corrupt piece of garbage?
Yeah.
Well, everybody forgets his whatever it was that he had on the island with the underage girl.
Yeah.
They had their slush fund, the Senate and the Congress, for dealing with those types of allegations.
Well, they should expose that list too, right? That's what Matt Gaetz wanted to do.
We our tax dollars to pay for it, and I want decent, moral people to be running for office, and people who can't be bought and persuaded or whatever. I mean, and that's hard to find those individuals.
I hope that they expose or release that list. I know Matt, Gaetz wanted to release that list of members of Congress that Congress paid, to silence these accusations. I think it's our government, it's our money. They should disclose that. Why is that a fucking secret?
I agree. I mean, if we're paying for it with our tax dollars, we should know.
So talking about tax dollars, I don't know if you saw, but they're saying that the president is thinking about issuing every American citizen or every American taxpayer a portion of all the money that they save through Doge.
Yeah, I agree with that. Why are we, we're taxed to death, I believe. So
that would be fucking awesome, dude. Imagine getting a fucking big fucking check that the government had fucking stole for months. Man, they're saying, abolish the fucking income tax. Dude, that would be fucking kick ass. DeSantis is pushing to abolish the property tax here in Florida. They're saying, hey, you know what?
I agree.
There you go.
Yeah.
Is targeting $2 trillion in total savings. Let's see. The Doge dividend. Elon Musk said Doge is considering sending $5,000 refund checks to U.S. taxpayers. This plan would send $75 million households, more or less $400 billion, which is 20% of Doge's projected savings. Wow. That's so bad. Hey, 5K is 5K, bro. Why not? Right? Thank you, Mr. Producer. I was hoping it'd be like 100K or something. Fuck. I mean, we paid more than fucking that in taxes just in 1 year alone, right? So fucking A. Anyways, Ted, dude, it's always a pleasure to have you, bro. We got to make it on a regular basis and chase some of these rabbit holes. And you know what? And talk about these things and see where the accountability is going. I think it's going to be very important. I know you're whispering shit. I know I'm whispering shit. Hopefully some of these whispers, get heard. And I'd love to find out what the fuck happens when he goes to the Pentagon and that office gets investigated. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think it'll be very telling, too. I wonder if it. I wonder if they.
That'll have to be a special team that goes there. To be honest,
Yeah, but
I mean they're going to need a lot higher security
clearance. Yeah, but I wonder if that would be disclosed. I wonder if they would disclose that because that might be so fucking damning. You know.
I think it's going to, but you know what? It all falls under President Trump as president and in charge of the military, and that agency falls under the military. So he could basically say, you know what? I want a special group to go into that one and let's audit and figure it out, because he already has the ties of trying to take down his presidency tied back to that office.
Right. But Hegseth can't, right? He can't.
I don't think he can.
That's what I thought. Because it reports directly to the president, right? At the pleasure of the president, right?
It's like I said, I think I've shown you an org chart where it's a dotted line that basically says this thing just kind of operates over here by itself, and it's its own thing, but it's under it's considered under the DoD.
Yeah, because I've had some people,
and it's a lifetime appointment. And what do? Well, they come up with all types of concepts to warfare and how to fight battles and how to do whatever.
Well, and I've had some people on here from the military, special forces, black ops side, and I've had spooks and whatnot, and they all say, well, it's not a think tank. It's not a think tank. Everybody says it's a think tank. No, it's not a think tank. They actually run fucking operations, so that's fucked up, right?
It is. I mean, but, again, it's just justification. I don't have a problem if it's got to be a black program. It runs as long as there's some accountability to it, and it's at the direction of somebody being held accountable, like the president, of those operations that are being performed.
Well, Jim Hansen said that, he's former special ops, right? And he said that. He goes, same thing you just said, by the way. You said, hey, we need, black ops. We need these black programs, but there's got to be accountability. We can't have one that has no accountability and answers to nobody. We can't have that.
Right. We've all watched, which is I'm thinking the spy movie where the guy is in a covert mission and he's black ops and he's out assassinating people, and then
It's not Born, is it?
Born Supremacy. Yeah. So you see this and you go, oh, what's this group's called? And they got all these code names, and supposedly that was all run under the CIA.
Treadstone and whatever the fuck they're called,
and all this kind of stuff. But the question is does it all lead back to the CIA, or does it lead back to this agency or something? And where does it all come back to? I just know that agency has access to everything, so I would go.
And it reports to nobody, so Jesus,
Well, it doesn't specify. It doesn't, as you just saw with Senator Grassley, who tried to say, hey, I want to audit you.
And they gave him the bird, didn't they?
They laughed at it and didn't do anything.
You know what's interesting, Ted, is that Grassley brought it up.
I mean, who do they report to? They don't report to the Senate. They don't report to Congress, it appears.
Yeah, but you know what? Grassley brought it up, and it was a big fuss.
Yep.
And then he never brought it up ever again. It just went away. Nobody ever mentioned it.
That's why I advised you.
Nobody in the media brought it up. Nobody fucking has talked about it. Somebody's afraid of something. Hey, like I've always said, dude, we'll talk about this in a second, but, I have more fucking weapons and ammo that it would take a fucking assault team to fucking get into my house, besides everybody in the fucking house is strapped and packed and fucking loaded, so maybe somebody fucking scared him. I don't know, bro. But how do you bring this up and then not even say, hey, by the way, I brought this up. I was wrong. There's nothing there. It's a nothing burger. But just not even mention it ever again is kind of strange.
Exactly what I said. You could have all the congressional GAO, CBO, CRN, all these agencies that were all federal, investigate this group. Okay, come up with a whole bunch of recommendations, but if nobody's going to take those recommendations and do anything with them to reform it, to fix it, and to make sure things don't happen again that are bad, again, that's bureaucracy, and that's what we have in our federal government. It's just so much bureaucracy. It's all about these individuals' private agendas, it seems, that get accomplished.
Yeah, you know what? Musk said something that was really that was so true, right? You said we're not a democracy, we're a bureaucracy. You know,
Yes.
and that's why we need to clean this shit up because this is not that's not who we are.
Start holding these career affected, lifetime appointed, whatever people accountable
Right.
for when these agencies are broke or doing things they shouldn't be doing or were not tasked to do, but they said, okay, we're going to create this little side thing over here and we're going to do this, but we're going to label it this with this wonderful name. Like our politicians do. We give everything wonderful names.
Hey, you still got time, right? Are you still good with time?
I'm fine.
All right, fuck it.
Yeah, protect the Children's Act or whatever.
So if you're good, man, let's go down this fucking rabbit hole.
Like, oh no, we're feeding children rat poison.
Yeah,
so, it's whatever.
Let's go down this rabbit hole, Ted. I'm going to ask
you what these things are.
I'm going to say something, and I know you know this answer because I know you play in that fucking world. You know a lot of fucking spooks like I do, and a lot of fucking people that have done really nasty shit out there, right? The people that fucking give the clearance are the people that are going to be investigated. So they're not going to clear the guys who investigate them. That's going to be the problem. And I'm going to tell you, dude.
Wait a minute. The president can issue those clearances.
Yeah, but each agency has to clear the people that they want, so they can delay the clearance. The president can't just say, "Hey, Ted, you have clearance tomorrow," right? The president can't just do that, right?
Take someone like Elon, probably, who has a top secret SCI or whatever.
Yep.
And they say, well, we need to get you a 3 steps approved. All that has to happen is, I believe, President Trump can sign a little piece of paper. It says, hey, fast track him, find any reason why not to deny him. And if there's no reasons, make it happen.
Right, but can the president say, hey, you know what? I'm going to give Ted the top fucking level secret, clearance. And you get it immediately? No, there's got to be a process. He says, I'm going to give it to Ted, but the agency has to extend it to you and approve it and give it to you, right? That's going to be the challenge, right?
Different levels, and there's different departments and agencies and so on. But
so that's what I'm saying. That's where we're going to find the stall.
What Elon Musk is going to have a need to know, hence why he needs this clearance, because he wants to go in and do this audit, and he's going to have his people cleared. But that agency can say, look, we want to make sure it's investigated. We have our own group inside that does that.
Thank you, Mr. Producer.
Say, well, we found a conflict, and we can't give them that clearance because of this conflict. We need to, deal with this, or we got this issue. They could delay it, but essentially,
that's what a CIA buddy of mine was telling me. He's like, dude, at the end, the president can say, hey, I want Ted to have clearance. But, the CIA has to clear you, so they're going to delay it. They're going to drag it out. They're going to fucking create shit,
pressure on that guy every day because he's going to get nasty letters that says, okay, do we need to replace you because you're obviously not efficient at your job. How long does this take? Now, the guy can answer back and say, look, I haven't had enough adequate time. I've now prioritized this. I'm going to look at it, and we've got to do a bunch of, investigating of discussions, talks. It does take some time.
Yeah.
It may take a month.
Yeah. Just your basic first level takes about 7 months.
So hopefully they started this process already a month ago. And that's why he's able to say, okay, it's been over a month. You've fact checked everybody I put on that answer list, and everything's come back. You've seen my financials, you've seen this, you've seen that. Now there's no issues. Make it happen.
So we talked about the Pentagon being a big fucking problem, and we've been talking about this for several years now, and how to clean that up. Somebody like Pete, Hegseth, I think is probably a good thing, but doesn't he need to go fucking clean house and get rid of a lot of fucking generals and colonels and people that are fucking part of this military complex, like you call them?
Well, a friend of mine, Douglas McGregor, who wrote a book about all that and basically reshaping our military to streamline it more efficiently because it has gotten so bloated. But I think we've also taken on new missions that weren't existing during World War II that we have, that, we've got a Space Force now that's needed. Okay? I think there should be also guys that need to deal with economic warfare.
Yeah. Well, you have a buddy. You have a buddy that I'm going to have on the show.
Department. I think we also need a better cyber security. Something that is looking at the fact that, take for example our electric grid. We found out that all these transformers have been purchased that have electronics in them that can be that basically either blow up or shut down the transformer from China.
Yep.
And goes, we need that to me needs to fall under DOD. This gets back to.
So let me pause you right there. Because that's super important, right? So that's why when I was, we kid around about Armageddon or, doomsday, or not doomsday, but if shit hits the fan, the reality of shit hitting the fan is not being invaded. The reality of hello?
Yep, lost your mic there.
Yeah. So the reality of shit hits the fan is what people like Sean Ryan, former SEALs, a lot of those people talk about EMPs, the loss of the grid. If we lose our grid, we're fucked, right? So how real is that? You just brought up exactly what Sean and plenty of other people are talking about right now, and plenty of people that we both know in the Black Ops side,
So that's my question. Is like, okay, so we bought these transformers from China. Why isn't DOE, which is the agency, looking into this, doing anything about it, or do they just not care? It's like, oh well, you turn it on and it's still supplying power. Somebody should be held accountable to say, whoa, this shouldn't happen. This gets back to bureaucracy, all right, that famous word. And I'll go back to the Clinton era, and one of the bigger mistakes that was made, and I'd love to see Trump maybe possibly fix this, is who decides what we as America decides is legal for export?
Right.
It used to be the Pentagon office that would decide and say, okay, you know what? I don't think selling rocket technology to China is a good idea.
Well, now it's state, right, with ITAR and EAR, right? Which, I don't know.
It's Commerce.
What's that?
Commerce Department, Ron Brown.
Okay,
the guy that ended up with a bullet in his head.
Yeah, in the back of his head, suicide by
a plane crash in Europe. So, so anyway, they made that switch so that Commerce Department basically says, okay, we're going to be the deciders on what can we allow for export out to other countries and so forth, because it's going to help America get cheaper goods from overseas. This is when we allowed 5-axis milling machines to be sold to China. Well, that's how China has now built its industrial capability.
Yeah.
We've shot ourselves in the foot and unnecessarily. That all needs to go back under Department of Defense to say, look, I like Microsoft Windows, but should America have a certain version of Windows and maybe some of our allies, and that's it, and everybody else gets a different version of Windows? Okay. Yeah. Like one that can't do the type of encryption that we need here in the States versus what we want to give them. And if they want computer capability, they choose to use that. If they want to go develop their own, go for it. Go make your own version of Unix or whatever.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we're using this, and we're going to stay ahead. That's how we keep our edge. And it's like we've opened the Pandora's box. We allowed everything. We got cheaper goods for Walmart, and our economy boomed for a short time. But we've seen all of our manufacturing get sucked out and go overseas because of it.
Well, we're seeing something, So going down all kinds of, we're down the rabbit hole. So fuck it, So we see that Joe Biden killed over 1 billion fucking, or 100 million chickens. So we don't have chicken, we don't have eggs. Everything's going through the fucking roof. I had a guest on the other day who's overseas, actually trying to solve some of these issues, and we were talking about it. And he said, if you look at it, if you cut off the food supply, the country goes to hell in 3 days.
Yeah.
If you shut off the energy grid,
power grid failure in New York,
right?
When it was I think it was the I Love You virus or something back then that cut down the power to the East Coast or whatever, and people were wondering like, well, what if the power doesn't come back up? When does social anarchy break out? We actually saw that all occur in New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina.
Yeah.
You saw police officers who basically said, yep, I'm a sworn police officer, but I'm in this Walmart stealing as much as I can because I don't know when we're going to get rescued.
Right.
There was no law and order. It was vigilante. It was just
And that's why you need to have those 8x8s, right? And I mean, kidding aside, but everybody talks about what's that window. Everybody talks about a 3-day window. What happens after the 3 days? You're kind of on your own, right? And what do you need to have?
You're either waiting for the government to come in and rescue you, like with FEMA or something, or when you're not seeing it, like some of those people in North Carolina, and they're not seeing FEMA for almost a week. You're thinking, we've been abandoned. We're on our own.
So if the energy grid goes down, there's no communications because not even shortwave, right? Not even handheld radios. Nothing would work.
If the grid goes down, most people who...
Hold on, you're frozen. Hold on, he just froze.
Communicate.
All right, you froze. I don't know if you can repeat that. If the grid goes down...
Oh, there you go. You're back. I said if the grid goes down, those people with shortwave radio who are ham radio operators probably have generators. They're going to communicate.
Okay.
They're going to be on air. Your radio stations are going to broadcast and so on. They'll be on generators or emergency power or whatever. I mean, when there was a flooding down there in, I think it was Florida, we got contacted by, I got contacted by a company that refuels the cell towers for their generators.
Yep.
And they're very important.
Yeah.
But they wanted to know, like, how much fuel could I put inside my vehicle and still float and get it to where they needed it at this cell tower site.
Yeah.
And I was like, this looks too dangerous. I said, I can't strap that to the top of it. It'll be too top heavy.
Yeah.
It's not going to work that way. It'd either be something I tow behind me that has to float and then still wheel up, and then we could do it. But there was just, they found another way to do it, and they did it with helicopters.
Gotcha. And I know during Katrina, AT&T and Verizon, the other guys, they all sent, what's called cows, right? Cell site on wheels in order to bring comms back up.
Blown over from a hurricane, the tower's down, they got to put another one up.
Yep.
And they have those mobile ones that they'll erect quickly for emergency situations. So, and that gets back to maybe FEMA having a better prepared plan to help with all of that.
So what's your everyday carry? You're a 9 guy? Are you a 9mm guy? I know a lot of people talk about different calibers. I know a lot of these special ops guys and spooks always talk about go with the 9 because that round is going to be available no matter where you go.
I'm a 45.
Yeah, I'm a 10 mil. I'm a 10 mil. But, I don't know. I mean, 9 seem to be pretty cheap and everywhere, right?
I'm old school, and the 45, if you hit somebody with it, they're not getting up.
Yep.
So.
Same thing with a 10. I mean, that's the only thing that'll put down a line or a grizzly. So fuck it. All I need to do is shoot them once, or hit them once, right? I can miss several times, but if I hit them once, they're down. And same thing with a 45. You're gonna fucking open a hole in them. So you have some cool toys. You have a Barrett.
Yeah, I do.
That'll split a person in half, right?
Yeah. I actually have one of the original Barretts.
So tell us about that, because that's a fun gun. I got to see it. Actually, I would show some of the pictures that I have, but they're probably not suitable for work. When you had that photo shoot, you had some of these models with the Barrett, which was very cool.
Yeah, that's actually an M82. Was manufactured in Barrett's garage back in the day when he was just starting out. It's a very low serial number. I forget the number off the top of my head, but it's very low. And it also has a 12-round magazine.
Oh, wow.
So, which is also very rare and unique, having a 12-round. Because those were what was used in the first Gulf War for Special Forces.
Oh, wow.
Yep. So
That's
I have
amazing. And you have a bunch of other fun memorabilia stuff. I don't know how much you want to share about that or not.
Yeah, I've got my house is like a museum. So I've got, just because I met so many very interesting people over the years and got the chance to work with them. I'll highlight a few of them. Irv Rifkin is an amazing individual. He's passed away since, but he was an OSS. He was one of our first American spies to go to Camp X in Canada. And before
tell us about that. What is Camp X? A lot of people don't know what that is.
Camp X was a training facility for spies for the Canadian and British in Canada. Okay. And Irv, who was in the Army, U.S. Army, was sent there to be specialized and trained because he was going to come back with that training and be able to train other people back in the U.S. Well, he actually ended up getting put on an airplane, sent over to Great Britain, then put on another airplane and parachuted into Nazi-occupied France.
Wow.
And he started working with agents there, doing sabotage missions and intelligence gathering. And it was basically all going back to the British. And one day the U.S. Army's like, we haven't heard from Irv. Hey, where is he? Canada. Let us get back to you. And then they realized Irv was already in Nazi-occupied France before the U.S. declared war with Germany.
Wow.
So he was doing things, all types of clandestine missions. One of the ones I always find amazing is he literally broke into the Fuhrer's headquarters in France.
Yep.
They had one there.
That was a cool story.
Yeah, and he killed the guy to get his armband who worked there. And he went in as a corporal and started cleaning. He was going around emptying trash cans. And he then stole a SS safe out of one of their offices and opened it, photographed everything, closed it up, and then he put it back inside their facility so they would not miss it.
That's crazy.
Yeah. The guy was badass. He talked about a lot of the things he did, some of the missions, and he received, I think, 2 Bronze Stars and quite a few Purple Hearts for different missions. He talked about, one time he gave an intelligent report saying, look, the Nazis got a brigade protecting this windmill. And they said, can you draw the windmill? So he draws it, sends it over, it comes back weeks later. Okay, we need you to immediately take that thing out. Immediately. It's got to go. He's like, you got to be kidding me. These are my orders. So him and a few guys from the French resistance went in, and he was dressed as a Nazi in uniform, got inside, and they blew it up. Everybody was killed. He was shot twice. He was able to escape in the woods, lying under a rotten log, and laid there for 3 days.
Wow.
And did not get found. Was bleeding, made it back to their waypoint, and got his wounds healed and everything. And he was waiting till he didn't know what the hell this thing was. He was pissed. He was like, "We lost everybody. What the hell was so important that we had to take this thing out immediately?"
And
it was a radar station because he didn't know what the hell radar was.
That's crazy, dude.
Yeah, so he had a lot of very interesting stories and missions that he did. Irv was a great guy. He created when he got back after the war, created a ship repair business over on the West Coast. It was very successful. Repaired Navy and Coast Guard, steel-hulled ships. And, finally he got admitted in the OSS museum and, received a big award. I forget what they call it, but from the OSS Society. It comes, I believe, from the CIA director. So for his part and his missions that he did in his service. But he was a Russian Jew who his parents had immigrated from Russia during, I guess, the White Revolution and came to America. And he was Jewish. But he spoke fluent German.
Wow.
And he knew Germany well. So from his family and so forth.
Yeah.
So he played it off very well.
That's fantastic, man. So can you tell us
his mementos that he gave me, and they're pretty awesome.
And you have memorabilia, like stuff. I don't know if you can share some of the stuff that you have in your possession.
I mean, I've got all types of trinkets. I mean, I've got an AK-47 signed by Kalashnikov that was signed during the Cold War.
Yeah.
Pretty cool things. That all talking pieces. I have you've seen it, model of an Iowa-class battleship that's fully modernized. It's pretty big. But that was on display at the skiff at the Rayburn building because I was doing naval gunfire. And it was on display at the Capitol. So it's and the Pentagon.
That's very cool, man.
Yeah, so I have that and a few other trinkets of things I've been involved with and done, and or people I met that felt, hey, I want to give you this. So that are very unique pieces of history. Have a story to themselves.
Yeah, yeah. Very cool, man. Hey, buddy, I appreciate it, man. We've covered so much ground. We've had a kick-ass show. We got to do this again. We gotta find a day in the week that works, and we can just go long form and just keep on going, man. I think there's, you've turned me on to some interesting people as well that I'm going to have on the show. So this kind of tees that up as well.
Yep.
And
yeah, definitely get involved in the economic warfare side.
Yep.
Because that's a big serious threat to this country.
I think that's where it ends up, man. I think that's where it ends up. But I think
it's not going to be a major conflict of some sort. That we're thinking of. They're going to hit us in another asymmetrical way to disable us, make us powerless, and then cripple us.
The grid, and the food, and the supplies.
Well, you got China that's bought up. I forget who the company is. It's got all the pork factories now for hogs, and it's like who was asleep at the wheel to let this happen? It's crazy.
Well, who's asleep at the wheel letting China buy all this fucking farmland next to fucking military bases?
Absolutely, and this is all our members of Congress. Nobody wants to do their job. Nobody wants to say, whoa. We got to red flag this. We can't let you do this. And it just seems like nobody does.
Yeah.
And it just happens, and then we bitch about it and complain about it and go, well, nothing's done.
Yeah.
That's why we can have a spy balloon fly over us multiple times over our country, and what have we done?
Incredible. All right, Ted, I appreciate you, buddy. We'll save it until next time, and there will be a next time for sure.
All right. Sounds good, man.
Awesome. Take care.
See ya.
All right, guys. I hope you guys had a great show, a great time. So much knowledge. Ted is one of those guys that me and him go back, and we can talk for hours. If we're having a drink, it can go for 4 or 5 hours. So there's just so much there to talk about, digest, and pick apart. But hopefully you enjoyed it. We're going to continue doing those, and we'll see you tomorrow, man. Remember, find us on video on Roku. For podcasts, we're on Spotify, iHeartRadio, we're on Apple, we're on Stitcher, we're on Spreaker, we're on Amazon Music, we're on Audible, we're everywhere. Download us, share us with your friends, please. And if you really want to see us on video, go to Rumble, subscribe, and follow us on social media. Take care. We'll see you tomorrow.